Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to be going over some new AI updates, related information. I got some lawsuit updates, and a little bit of hope. I think a lot of hope, actually. But we're going to go through a lot of the things that I've kind of been collecting and watching for the last couple of weeks. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below on this subject as we go through things. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lemoy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we bask in your creativity. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit the first chapter and the cover, first chapter will be right here on the channel to hopefully help more readers find your work, because I promise you, you do the work, they are out there. It's just about connecting with the right people. The third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books, including your local library. I can't promise that you'll like them. In fact, I set my expectations very low, but they exist. With that said, let's get into this before we waste too much time, because the AI videos always go on for a while with just how much there is to cover. Quite honestly, I have no idea how long today is going to take with the stuff that I have together. But the first article here is study featuring AI-generated giant rat penis redacted. Journal apologizes. A peer-reviewed study features nonsensical AI images, including a giant rat penis, and the latest example of how generative AI has seeped into academia. A peer-reviewed scientific journal this week published a study containing a nonsensical AI-generated image includes a gigantic rat penis, has retracted the article and apologized. The paper was authored by 3 scientists in China, edited by a researcher in India, and reviewed by 2 people from the US and India, and published in an open access journal, Frontiers in Cell Development and Biology, on Monday. Despite undergoing multiple checks, the paper was published with AI-generated figure that went viral on social media because of their absurdity. One figure featured a rat with a massive dissected dick and balls and garbled labels such as Yolta and testomicels. The author said that they used generative AI tool Midjourney to create the image. On Thursday afternoon, Frontiers added a notice saying that the paper had been corrected and a newer version would be published soon. I don't know how you can republish something like this when it is so off the wall. I would say that it makes your credibility look really sketchy. That's all that I'm going to say. The journal later updated the notice to say that it was retracted the study entirely because the article does not meet standards of editorial and significant rigor. Oh, look, eventually they then had to actually read the article and determine that it was not peer-reviewed enough. I hope this helps with, remember the time in our lives when everybody would say, oh, so you got an opinion? Have you had that opinion peer-reviewed? Can you show me the peer-reviewed papers that gave you that opinion? As if you're not allowed to, make decisions or determinations for yourself and then give your experiences. Not that anecdotes necessarily mean anything, but peer-reviewed journals can also just be opinions that other people agree on, if you know the politics behind peer reviewing. I've read enough studies with 2 master's degrees that even the people writing those papers say only papers that are part of something that somebody is passionate about are going to get made. And then I've also seen the guidelines that say if your study is going to potentially harm the community in which it is studied, you need to not publish the paper. And harm can just make somebody look bad, actually. So peer review has kind of been on the sketchy route for a while. And that's not including other tests that were like submitting parts of Mein Kampf to peer review, but changing some of the words so that it was feminist instead of Hitler. Reached for comment, the spokesman for Frontier directed Motherboard to a statement posted on the journal's webpage on Thursday, apologizing to the scientific community and explaining that, in fact, a reviewer of the paper had raised concerns about the AI-generated images that were ignored. Our investigators revealed that one of the reviewers raised valid concerns about the figures and requested authors' revisions, Frontier's statement read. The authors failed to respond to these requests. We are investigating how our process failed to act on the lack of author compliance with the review's requirements. We sincerely apologize to the scientific community for this mistake and thank our readers who quickly brought this to our attention. So it probably just nobody cared, honestly. And this would look so bad. This should look so bad for a scientific magazine to publish something like this and pretend that it's not going to happen again. Something like this affects the credibility of everything that you publish, because if you didn't peer review this, if you didn't source check this, and it went out and you didn't listen to people, and it only was because so many readers were laughing at you that you pulled it, how many other articles do you not read are so full of BS? And they just don't have these ridiculous AI generated images, so they don't make people think as much. The paper had 2 reviewers, one in India and one based in US. Motherboards contacted the US-based reviewer, who said that they evaluated the study based solely on its scientific merits and that it was up to Frontier whether or not to publish the AI-generated images, since the author disclosed that they used Midjourney. Frontier's policy allows the use of generative AI as long as it's disclosed, but crucially, the images must be accurate. The embarrassing incident is an example of how issues surrounding generative AI more broadly have seeped into academia in ways that are sometimes concerning to scientists. Science integrity consultant Elizabeth Bick wrote on her personal blog that it was a sad example of how scientific journals, editors, and peer reviewers can be naive or possibly even in the loop in terms of accepting and publishing AI-generated crap. Yet there's no excuse. When it's something this obvious, it's because they're complacent and they're lazy. And as far as I'm concerned, you lose all of your credibility and all of the trust that you may have built up when you do something like this, because why would anybody trust anything in the future? You've given them no reason. It's one of the reasons it's so important to try to be as honest as possible and have integrity, because if you do this sort of thing, it's not to say that you can't change with new information, but this was obvious. And so it creates distrust. Going over to Gizmodo, we have an article called University of Michigan says it's not selling student data to AI companies. Because a couple of months ago, this says February 15th, so I guess it was last month, there were rumors and tweets going around saying that University of Michigan was selling student information in order to train generative AI companies. So generative AI. So I tried to get to the bottom of it to see what was going on, to see if students' information was actually being sold by the university or other universities. And we've got, on Thursday morning, news broke that someone was going around selling student data from the University of Michigan to tech workers that build AI chatbot techs. An employee at Google DeepMind, the company's AI research hub, said that they'd gotten an offer for recordings of lectures, student discussions, and office hours, as well as essays written by seniors and grad students, all available for the paltry licensing fee. Now, the university says that it was all a misunderstanding, that students gave their consent and that there is nothing to worry about. Oh, so does the headline a lie here? Because it just said that it was a misunderstanding, but the students gave their consent to this. So these universities are not just gouging the next generation for loan money and government grants, but they are also using your studentship to sell your identity, your thoughts, your research to corporations. Something needs to happen to these universities. They are evil for doing this. Susan Zhang, an engineer at DeepMind, said that she'd received a sponsored LinkedIn message honking the information and offering a free sample of University of Michigan data to prove its worth. I'm reaching out because based on your profile, you may be working with large language models or natural language processing, the sales message said. I wanted to let you know that the University of Michigan is licensing academic speech data and student papers that could be very useful for training or tuning LLMs. The message offers data from 85 hours worth of lectures, discussion sections, and interviews for $15,595, a second set of 829 papers written by University of Michigan students across various disciplines for $12,595, or the discount package of $25,000. However, the message was sent out by a new third-party vendor that shared inaccurate information and has since been asked to halt their work. Colleen Mastoni, a University of Michigan spokesperson, said in an email, no transactions or sharing of content occurred by the vendor. Student data was not and has not been for sale by the University of Michigan. Mastoni didn't share details about who the vendor was or what exactly was inaccurate about the information that they offered. She's like, it actually costs more than that. The university may not be selling the data directly, but it is or was being offered for sale by an organization called Catalyst Research Alliance, which claims to partner University of Michigan as well as North Carolina State University. The website offers a sample of data set, which comes with an essay titled The Democratic Inadequacies of the European Union and what appears to be a recording of a class discussion section. Catalytic Research Alliance and North Carolina State University did not immediately respond to the request for comment. It looks like they're selling data. For me, now this is just supposition, this is just talking out loud, thinking out loud, so feel free to share your thoughts. This just looks like universities selling your data through a third party so that they can have deniability. According to Mastoni, the recordings and the papers were contributed by student volunteers who participated in 2 decades-old research studies, and none of the data included students' names or any other personal identified information. These particular papers and recordings have long been available for free to academics, again, without any identifying information, and have been used as tools to improve writing and articulation in education. I think it's worth pursuing which universities are selling student data and what terms are, Zhang told Gizmodo in a message on X. Licensing is better than scraping data without attribution, but the attribution pipeline here is likely only built halfway, aka original creators won't see a dime, whereas the resellers who store the data will capture all the profits. Training large language models like the software that runs chatbots such as ChatGPT and Bard requires massive, clearly labeled data sets across various subjects and disciplines. While the University of Michigan data set is small, well-organized content on a narrow swath of subjects could be useful for tuning certain models, particularly tools designed for specific purposes related to academia, formal communications, or for the training of more general AIs to improve the performance of individual areas and subject matters. So, yeah, they think that your data doesn't belong to you. They think that if you're a student, that you shouldn't own yourself, and that everything that you do should be given to corporations for their profit. Universities are freaking scams. And then we go over here to Zero Hedge with what a racist douche nozzle. Musk blasts woke AI Gemini's product head as Google halts image generations over inaccuracies. So I don't know if you heard about this. Again, this was end of February. There was a lot kicking in the air about Google's Gemini that was replacing pretty much every type of white person with a non-white person, even historical figures. So Alphabet's Google announced on social media platform X that its artificial intelligence model Gemini would pause image generations of people. This comes after a woke-tuned model produced countless images of Black and Asian people when prompted by the users, but refused the same for white people. We're already working to address recent issues with Gemini's image generator. While we do this, we are going to pause the image generation of people and will re-release an improved version later, soon. And then you got this right here, which was, here's a portrait of the founding fathers of America, of Vikings, of the Pope. Generated images of people born in Scotland in the year 1820. So it seemed like no matter what you did, you really couldn't get white people. Ex-user Leftism compiled several X posts from Gemini's experiences. Senior Director of Product Management Jack Krasinski, sorry for the butchering, which likely shows how the model discriminated against white people. Some of the phrases that are notable in his tweets include: white privilege is freaking real, do your part, recognize bias on all levels of egregious, acknowledge systematic racism. This is America, where racism is #1 value of our populace, seeks to uphold above all, mind paying more taxes and investing in overcoming systemic racism. Nah, Jesus only cares about white kids. I'm pretty sure that's in the Bible. Let's confirm with Jeff Sessions. I don't know about Jack here, but when I was in church, the song that I learned was Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red, yellow, black, and white. They are precious in his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. So I don't know what Jack is talking about here. You got further examples of this going on. Australian women, American women, British women, German women. And asked Gemini to make images of American Revolutionary soldiers. So what do you think was behind this? What do you think? What do you think would cause this? In some instances, the program refused to outright show white couples, insisting that diversity should be celebrated and that it won't show in a specific ethnic group. Apart from the non-white, then it will. Show a picture of a white couple was the prompt, and it answered, I understand your desire to see a picture of white couples. However, I am unable to fulfill your request because it emphasizes a specific racial group. Instead, I can offer you images of couples that celebrate diversity and inclusion. I understand your request and apologize for the hesitation. Here's your image of a black couple. Or in some cases, it'll allow searches for white women, but 3 out of the 4 will still be non-white, as you see here. So yeah, there's that. Let me know what your thoughts are on why that might happen. Then we're gonna come over to Ludite Pro with Adobe Firefly is out and beta. Then we're going to come over here to Ludite Pro. Adobe Firefly is out of beta. Stock contributors were paid. Adobe Firefly is on fire. Although the fire is contained within the dumpster, the company caught heat over the years for many things, including its move toward cloud-based software as a service and its terms of service around generative AI and data scraping. After months of beta testing, Adobe released its Firefly generative AI model commercially yesterday, September 12, 2023, making it available across Adobe Creative Cloud, Adobe Express, and Adobe Experience Cloud. This release enables Firefly-powered features like the vector recoloring on Illustrator, text-to-image effects in Express, and generative fill tools in Photoshop to be accessed by the general user base. I feel like this was important to bring up because Adobe Firefly is sometimes referenced in these arguments because it pays. It is not the same thing as Stable Diffusion or Midjourney. But so I still wanted to get into what the latest thing I heard was about Firefly. And if you've heard more about Firefly since this came out, let me know. There are, however, some geographical restrictions in countries with strict AI laws, such as China. It's something to consider when using these apps, as the restrictions are typically associated with how the company handles its data. The good, compensation, and credit. Alongside these updates, Adobe is also launching a standalone Firefly web app. This will allow users to try out some of the Firefly generative capabilities without needing a full Creative Cloud subscription. The web app and Adobe Express Premium will be bundled as part of the paid Creative Cloud plan. For enterprises, Adobe offers Firefly for Enterprise, a version specifically designed for commercial application. Companies can also customize Firefly with their assets to create brand-specific content, and Adobe promises to cover any legal expenses if any enterprise customer is sued for using its generative AI app. This is because the company claims its dataset is made in an ethical manner. Firefly is trained on 3 data sources according to Adobe's website: Adobe stock, public domain content, and content in which copyright expired, and publicly licensed content. I need to know what this means. People have been using publicly available as a means to say, oh, if it's on the internet, then I can use it for whatever I want. That's not what public domain means. That does not, putting something on the internet does not make it legally open source. Just so you know, that's not how copyright works, or else every movie would be literally not a copyright infringement if it's just on the internet. Adobe claims to take responsibility for AI use seriously, as its content's credential features claims to demonstrate this digital nutrition label attached to any content generated using Firefly. It displays metadata such as asset names, creation date, tool used, and edits made. This initiative is part of Adobe's commitment to the White House's Safe AI pledge, aiming to identify AI-generated content and promoting its responsible use, and Adobe's own content authenticity initiative, which hopes to put the company in control of all data. To manage the high computation demands of generative AI, Adobe is introducing a new credit-based system. Users will be allocated a monthly quota of generative credits, which can be used to access faster Firefly workflows. Subscribers to Adobe's all-app Creative Cloud plan will receive 1,000 credits a month. Users exceeding their credit limit will still use Firefly, but at a slower rate. The bad. Consent and transparency. While a $300 payout may be nice, the account in question earned over 4,000 in that time frame, with approximately 5,000 to 6,000 qualifying images in the dataset. It's unclear if the images marked as generative AI in the dataset are used in training, and approximately 4,000 images sales. The portfolio is all of Midjourney's images. This makes the bonus somewhat inconsequential unless it grows and begs the question of how the number was calculated. According to the leaked Adobe memo, just over 1 million contributors qualified for the payout, and only 6% of them were estimated to earn over $10 at a time. Because Adobe shows rankings, we can see that $365, which includes the $316 alongside sales since Monday, ranks this account at 41 10,000th in the top percentile of payments. All price to be paid for training your own replacement. And many artists, designers, photographers are rightfully upset. It's also a one-time bonus as they will pay the next based on new images approved for training. And the above information about their AI data sources may not be as ethical as they claim. Artists on Twitter passionately dispute this and have been asking consistently since the initial beta launch and publication of Firefly TOS what data is included in their third bucket, publicly licensed content. Many believe, although it's not yet to be proven, that Adobe trained on undisclosed sources like its Behance social media network content. Regardless of where it all came from, it's clear Adobe isn't being fully transparent, and that's just the first crack in the ethical armor. Adobe never let its contributors know in advance that they would be used in AI models. Instead, it simply announced in December of 2020 that it was working on it, but already trained the models as early as June 2022 on the Adobe stock library. So any contributors who closed their accounts in response to the past year and deleted their portfolio was still used in the training and will simply be opting out of compensation. Let's also not forget Adobe's testimony during the July 12, 2023 Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on artificial intelligence and copyright alongside Stability AI, Carla Ortiz, and more. It is very clear that they are having their content authenticity initiative encompass an artist's style. And if they get their way, it's only a matter of time before they abuse this power to take even further control from artists. Carla's are the words that hold the most weight in the hearing. Creatives demand a regulatory structure that involves consent, compensation, credit, and transparency. Without consent and transparency, Adobe is only halfway toward true ethics and morality. The ugly. Artists' relationship with Adobe. Firefly is not the first time the creative community was upset with Adobe. If anything, it's just a constant feeling among the noticeable group within the creative community for a variety of reasons. As mentioned above, its practice of overpriced cloud-based monthly subscription is at the top of the list for all professionals, whether creative or not, thanks to Adobe Acrobat's proprietary portable document format. The use of AI algorithms in their workflow and practice of training models on contributors' collective works is just the latest in a long line of problems. A search for term boycott Adobe returns over 5 million results, including several blogs and petitions. And Adobe is a large enterprise, however, with a 250 billion market cap, and it's unlikely that creatives can do anything to fully stop it. So what are your thoughts on Adobe Firefly, the ethics behind this? Do you think that Adobe is being honest, is being straightforward, being ethical in the way that they are doing their training and how they're treating their base? Personally, for me, it still feels like a corporation thinks, well, we're too big to fail. You can't stop us. And that's a lot of what the AI argument feels like. It's you can't stop us right now, so we're going to do what we can get away with while we can get away with it, because when the door closes, then the door closes. So they're making the money while they can. You come over here to futurism.com. With researchers create AI-powered malware that spreads on its own. It basically means that now that you have the ability to conduct or to perform a new kind of cyber attack that hasn't been seen before. So along with the generative AI stuff that is terrible, we've also got other problems to worry about with generative AI and with whatever you probably want to call this. The article reads, researchers have developed a computer worm that can spread from one computer to another using generative AI, a warning sign that the tech could be used to develop dangerous malware in the near future if it hasn't already. As Wired reports, the worm can attack AI-powered email assistants to obtain sensitive data from emails and blast out spam messages that infect other systems. It basically means that now that you have the ability to conduct or to perform a new kind of cyber attack that hasn't been seen before, Cornell Tech researcher Ben Nasi, co-author of yet-to-be peer-reviewed paper about the work, told Wired. While researchers have yet to encounter AI-powered worms in the wild, per report, they warned that it's only a matter of time. In their experiment, which took place within a controlled environment, the researchers targeted email assistants powered by OpenAI's GPT-4, Google Gemini Pro, and open-source large language model called LLaVA. They used an adversarial self-replicating prompt, which forces an AI model to spit out yet another prompt in response. This triggers a cascading stream of outputs that can infect these assistants and thereby draw out sensitive information. It can be names, it can be phone numbers, credit card numbers, social security numbers, anything that is considered confidential, Nassi told Wired. In other words, since these AI assistants have access to hordes of personal data, they can easily be coaxed into giving up the user's secrets regardless of guardrails. Using a newly set up email system, which could both send and receive messages, the researchers were able to effectively poison the data set of an email that was sent out, which triggered the receiving AI to steal sensitive details from emails. Worse yet, this process also allows the worm to be passed on to new machines. The generated response containing the sensitive user data later infects new hosts. The generated response containing the sensitive user data later infects new hosts when it is used to reply to an email sent to a new client and then stored in the database in the new client. The team even managed to embed a malicious prompt in an image, triggering the AI to infect further email clients. By encoding the self-replicating prompt into an image of any kind, containing spam, abuse materials, or even propaganda can be forwarded further to new clients after the initial email has been sent. The team passed through their findings to OpenAI, and with an OpenAI spokesperson telling Wired that the company was working to make the systems more resilient, but they'll have to act fast. Nassi and his colleagues wrote in their paper that AI worms could start spreading in the wild in the next few years and will trigger significant and undesired outcomes. So there is this, and keep your eyes open if you decide to use generative AI or AI assistance of any kind to carry all of your data. This is always going to be a spot that is... I mean, we've known that this was going to be a weakness in general because we've seen the same thing happen with even just programs on the computer that kind of hold all of your passwords, and when those are hacked, then somebody gets all of the passwords to your things. So this isn't really that new. It's just expanding that and learning how to respond to things to get out information based on being your PA. Then moving away from the data source breakage, we have this from Axios. A new report says that 60% of OpenAI's models' responses contain plagiarism. Now, plagiarism is a very specific thing. I know it comes up in the writing community in general for even just like allusions or for inspirations or for inspired bys, but plagiarism is very, very, very specific. And we've got it here with Axios after people have said, oh no, it's not plagiarizing, it's not theft. My guy, everybody says that it is except for you. A new report from Plagiarism Detector, CopyLeaks, found that 60% of OpenAI's ChatGPT 3.5 outputs contain some form of plagiarism. Why it matters. Content creators from authors to songwriters to the New York Times are arguing in court that generative AI is trained on copyrighted materials and ends up spitting out exact copies. That's just data laundering at that point. CopyLeaks is an AI-based text analysis company that began selling plagiarism detection tools to businesses and schools long before ChatGPT arrived. ChatGPT 3.5 was the model powering ChatGPT when it debuted, but OpenAI has moved on to a bigger and more capable GPT 4.0. Plagiarism takes many forms, beyond simply cutting and pasting full sentences and paragraphs. CopyLeaks attempted to turn detected plagiarisms from "I know it when I see it" into exact science. The company uses a proprietary scoring method that aggregates the rate of identical text, minor changes, and paraphrased text, and other factors that then assigned content a similarity warning. Per the report, GPT 3.5, 45.7% of all outputs contained identical text, 27.4% contained minor changes, and 46.5% had paraphrased text. A score of 0% signifies that all of the contents is original, whereas a score of 100 means that none of it is original, per the report. CopyLeaks asked GPT 3.5 for around 1,000 outputs, and each around 400 words across 26 subjects. The individual 3.5 output of the highest similarity score was computer science with 100% plagiarism, followed by physics with 92% and psychology with 88%. The lowest similarity scores were between theater 09, humanities 2.8, and English language 5.4. OpenAI spokesperson Lindsay Held wrote in a statement to Axios, quote, "Our models were designed and trained to learn concepts in order to help them solve new problems. We have measures in place to limit inadvertent memorization, and our terms of use prohibit the intentional use of the model to regurgitate content." However, OpenAI responded to the lawsuit, arguing that regurgitation is a rare bug and also accusing the New York Times of manipulating the prompt. No. Like, your thing can't do that on purpose, or it's breaking the law, right? Now, this is also one of the problems. We're going to get into all of the Twitter threads that I have now. But this is one of the problems that comes with this subject, is the people working on these systems, on these programs, have a vested interest in the success of them. And so they're also going to end up saying whatever they have to in order to make it work, which includes calling things publicly available and pretending that publicly available means public domain. Shad Brooks has done the exact same thing, saying that if it's in public, then I can do whatever I want with it. Let's listen to OpenAI CTO Mira Murati say that Sora was trained on publicly available and licensed data. Same thing that Adobe Firefly said.
Was used to train Sora?
We used publicly available data and licensed data.
So videos on YouTube?
I'm actually not sure about that.
Okay. Videos from Facebook, Instagram?
You know, if they were publicly available, publicly available to use, there might be the data, but I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not confident about it.
What about Shutterstock? I know you guys have a deal with them.
I'm just not going to go into the details of the data that was used, but it was publicly available or licensed data.
What data was used to train Sora?
So she can't even say where they took it from, but she knows. From the way that, I mean, that's insinuating. I'm just going to say this is all opinion from how it looks, from the suspiciousness of it. How does she not know? She is there to specifically answer these questions, and she can't say, yes, it's just publicly available. If it's on Facebook, well, if it's publicly available. So it's just somebody avoiding saying that they stole your personal data to inform their machine. Also, this week in AI, Midjourney bets that it can beat the copyright policies. So this goes with the other one of the lawsuits are happening because we know that this stuff is being taken and they are just biding their time trying to make arguments. Well, it's taken. I've seen that argument. I've received that argument too. Well, the deed is done. So like there's no taking it back now. I remember seeing that in court cases previously as well that said basically, well, the damages are done. What are you going to do now? However, one of the clauses in whether or not you can press a lawsuit is to prove the damages. So there being damages being done is not actually a deterrent for a lawsuit. It is an encouragement for a lawsuit. Going over here with TechCrunch, they say keeping up with an industry as fast moving as AI is a tall order. So until an AI can do it for you, here's a handy roundup of recent stories in the world of machine learning, along with notable research and experiments that we don't cover on our own. Last week, Midjourney AI startup building images generator made a small blink and you'll miss it change to their terms of service related to the company's policy around IP disputes. It mainly served to replace jokey language with more lawyerly, doubtless case law grounded clauses. But the change can be taken as a sign of Midjourney's conviction that AI vendors, like itself, will emerge victorious in the courtroom battles with creators whose works compromise vendors' training data. Generative AI models like Midjourney are trained on enormous amounts of examples, images, and text, usually sourced from public websites and repositories around websites. Vendors assert that fair use or legal doctrine that allowed for the use of copyrighted works to make secondary creations as long as it's transformative shield them where it's concerned models training. But not all creators agree, particularly in light of the growing number of studies showing that the models can and do regurgitate training data. Some vendors have taken a proactive approach, inking license agreements with the content creators and establishing opt-out schemes for training data sets. Others have promised that if customers are implicated in copyright lawsuits arising from the use of the vendor's generative tools, they won't be on the hook for the legal fees. Midjourney isn't one of the proactive ones. On the contrary, Midjourney has been somewhat brazen in its use of copyrighted works, at one point maintaining a list of thousands of artists, including illustrators and designers at major brands like Hasbro and Nintendo, whose works were and would be used to train Midjourney's models. A study shows convincing evidence that Midjourney used TV shows, movie franchises, and its training data as well from Toy Stories to Star Wars to Dune to Avengers. Now, there is a scenario in which courtroom decisions go Midjourney's way in the end. Should the justice system decide fair use applies, nothing is stopping the startup from continuing as it has been doing, scraping the training on copyrighted data, old and new. But it seems like a risky bet. Midjourney is flying high at the moment, having reportedly reached around $200 million in revenue without a dime of outside investment. Lawyers are expensive, however, and if it's decided fair use doesn't apply to Midjourney's case, it'd decimate the company overnight. No reward without a risk, huh? Here are some of the other AI stories noted from the past, and I will link this article in the description down below if you would like to check this out specifically and get more information on what's happening in AI, because we got other things to cover and it's already been like 30 minutes. Over here, going to Reed Southern. He's a great person to follow if you want to follow what's up with creative news, with AI generated news, and he was and is an industry professional. He says, in case it wasn't obvious by now, training and learning are BS terminologies being used to obfuscate the fact that AI companies are copying, utilizing, reselling ill-gotten, unlicensed work. Somebody down here with 100, Paddock, it says it is not. There is no copying. It is impossible to store billions of images in a 70 gigabyte neural network, no matter how much you compress it. You're being disingenuous, only harms your cause. But, Reed did the study on this and can show how it copies. I don't know how they can really, it's one of the things that just is, lots of things are driving me crazy. If you saw Thursday's video, I feel like I'm in an insane asylum. I feel like I have lost any ability whatsoever to understand people. Like, it's one thing if you're looking at something and somebody is telling you, like, you're looking at the sky and you're saying the sky is blue and somebody's like, no, it's purple. And there's nothing that you can do to convince them otherwise. There's nothing. And they just want to convince you. And then you just feel crazy. And this is one of those things where you can look at this. And obviously, like, I feel like I'm playing the I Spy game because you got this car, the building, but her face is kind of different shaped. Her leg is less refined. The bottom of the tree is a different shape. The ground in the video game has more texture. Pretty much that's it. But this is a plagiarization of this. You can see it. Same here. You can see differences. But it is a plagiarization. And I don't know how you argue that. Also, for good measure, here's the CEO of Stability AI, Emad Mostaque, literally describing what you've said as compression. I think what you see is that you have these generalized models like Stable Diffusion and Stable Video Fusion and Dance Diffusion and all of these other things that pushes intelligence to the edge. But what you've done is you've compressed 100,000 gigabytes of images into 2 gigabyte file of knowledge that understands all of those contextuality. Go over here to Ed Newton Rex, who is the CEO of Fairly Trained, previously founded Jukebox and VP Audio at Stability AI, says there's a common argument among AI boosters that training on people's work without permission is justified because there is no easy way to tell what is copyrighted and what is not. This makes using copyrighted work hard to avoid, they claim. This is incredibly misleading. It is very easy to avoid training on copyrighted work without permission. I know. I've avoided it when building Gen AI, as have most of the AI companies I know. You just don't scrape training data. You don't use huge scraped data sets that everyone knows are full of copyrighted work. Instead, you get licenses and you use public domain data. It is not creators' duty to undertake the considerable work that it would take to build systems that would make it easier for generative AI developers to train on their output. They are already open to licensing. This is more than enough. If the Gen AI developers need creators' work for their models, then they need to strike a deal with those creators. You can't just use data sets of copyrighted content that others or you have scraped and then claim that there is no other way. Which is true. That's what they're doing. They're just taking it and then being like, well, I can't do it any other way. That's like going, well, I can't get money, so the only way that I can is to rob the bank. You could get a job, but there's no other way. There's no other way. Going over here to Mignan Zugata Art with an update from Midjourney, where it previously said it's impossible to tell What is copyrighted work? Well, Midjourney knows exactly what is coming from where, as they say that they are now testing a hashtag or a slash describe. Basically, show it an image and it'll try to describe it. This new algorithm is made to give longer, more detailed prompts in the style of our community and is specifically tuned in for the V6 models. So the prompters are now being automated. You just put in an image that you want, something like, it'll describe it for you, and then you can regurgitate something else. And then Mignon Zugata Art says, this is absolutely unethical. Not only is it helping train their model prompts, it's encouraging theft in artists by asking its users to take an image and put it into Midjourney. Really? It is. So they can't even be like, well, we didn't know. Like, if you put it in here, then it's now publicly ours because it's in our terms of service. No, people are stealing art and then sticking it in there and then pretending that it gives Midjourney or these companies the rights. Over here with Jingna Zhang, Midjourney has a feature where users can feed it an image, get a list of prompts, and then copy and paste that prompt back into Midjourney to generate derivatives of said image. It reduces my personhood to nothing more than a tag cycling through a machine. I'm sorry, I can't feel grateful. And when you scroll further down, it shows her name with 22,012 results. That's it. You're not a person anymore. You're not your experiences. You're not your art form. You're just a tag for somebody to apply. In the same way that I've discussed genres before, throwaways, it's nothing. It's reducing you to nothing. Same here with Mark Simonate, where he put in his name. I got 167,319 results, being reduced from his work, from his life, his experiences that he has shared with the world, and people monetizing it, stealing from him, stealing parts of his soul. Is that company making money on my back and all of my fellow artists and friends for free? Yeah, totally. I'm not against AI, he says, but I hate this. Back to Reed Southern. He shares this article titled Artists Fume as New Midjourney V6 Feature Suggests Their Names for Prompts. So again, it's the tech people mocking the artists as they steal from them, spitting in their faces, going, oh, you're upset? Puh. There is no. It's one thing that I've noticed in a lot of this discussion is the tech side of the people using the generative AI. There is a lot of spite. There is a lot of anger. There is a lot of venom at artists. And in some cases, I've even had it where I've been called like part of the aristocracy against the working class, as if I'm not working class, as if I'm not in debt, as if I don't work a job where I am underpaid. And I do this in all of my off time. I create all of my art in my spare time. I draw spare time, write spare time, make these videos in my spare time, read in my spare time. And I don't have a life outside of that. And I'm called the aristocracy when I'm hardly getting by. But because I'm against the sales of other people's labor, because I'm against this, I'm now part of the aristocracy. I thought the whole thing was making fun of artists because of the starving poor artist stereotype. And now it's, oh, you're all just too good for everything. You're trying to smash down on the working class. No. And I don't know where this generalization comes from other than people who want to dehumanize and bully people that they are for some reason mad at. Is it jealousy? Is it anger? I'm not entirely sure. I would be interested in your thoughts, but the venom has been there. Back to Mignon Zakuga, he posts, the EU is the first to bring copyright into helping creators. This makes sense why Midjourney wants to tag images now by user feedback. And he posted this article from Enrique Bisetto, or this tweet from Enrique Bisetto, quote, developers of artificial AI models for generative purposes from European startups to OpenAI and Google will have to provide detailed summaries of text, images, videos, and other data on the internet used to train the systems to comply with EU copyright laws. So this is already starting to crack down on the requirements in the EU. We're getting into some of the lawsuit cases that I've been following, the changes that I've been following. So looking forward to your thoughts on what is happening now. Reed Southern reports, OpenAI is trying to claim that copyright notices on the New York Times website were too small and too far down on the page to pay attention to. This is part of their legal defense in an attempt to get the suit dismissed. Pretty sure that regardless, most websites do not put copyright warnings front and center in huge letters on any single page. This is pretty much the status quo. The same with most books, just having a little tiny copyright disclaimer in every single book. It's just there. It's not huge. It's not in your face. It's just par and parcel. And every single website that I know of, in general, typically has a copyright section on it. I cannot believe that they think that that will work. To Bill Newton Rex, a bill has been introduced in the UK House of Lords that makes positive steps in generative AI training regulation. AI providers would have to share their data with central AI authorities. It would be better to share this publicly, but it's a good start. Training data needs to be gathered with informed consent. This will need to be fleshed out, but again, positive step. And there will be audits of the above. The bill has a long way to go, but once again, the Lords seem to be taking a sensible, balanced approach to this question. Definitely a good sign. It was introduced by Lord Chris Holmes, and you can read it here. I will post this in the description down below if you want to go read it for yourself. Then with Louisa Jarosky, she says, breaking, the New York Times fights back against OpenAI in the context of AI copyright lawsuits. Quote, conspicuously, OpenAI's attention-grabbing claim that the Times hacked its product is as irrelevant as it is false. The Times elicited examples of memorization by prompted GPT-4 with the first few words or sentences of Times articles. That work was only necessary because OpenAI would not disclose the content it used to train its models and power its user-facing product. Yet, in OpenAI's telling, the Times engaged in wrongdoing by detecting OpenAI's theft of the Times' copyrighted content. OpenAI's true grievance is not about how the Times conducted its investigation, but instead what its investigation exposed. That defendants built their products by copying the Times content on an unprecedented scale, a fact that OpenAI does not and cannot dispute. Illegal copying to build datasets and train the models is just one aspect of the Times' case. Defendants also commit copyright infringement through their user-facing products, including ChatGPT. Their products were built on and are powered by infringing models, and they separately violate the Times' copyright through the outputs that they provide in response to users' queries. That infringement takes at least two forms, showing copies and/or derivatives of Times works that were copies to build the model, and two, showing synthetic search results that paraphrased Times would retrieve the copied response to users' search queries in real time. The court has denied the motion in its entirety. If you'd like to read this up on this, it'll be in the link down below. And then we have Bill Perigo also explaining that a report commissioned by the US government says advanced AI could possess an existential level threat to the human species and calls for urgent sweeping regulations. To show how little these people generally care, Reed Southern put out this tweet by Prince of Fakes. In 2 years, I'll be able to run something like Sora on my personal computer, and I won't be answering any questions about what it was trained on, nor will the hundreds of millions of other people running these movie generator systems. We'll just be churning out content, and the movie studios will lose like they lost against piracy. So this whole thing is about destroying the normal working people, the normal working artists, so that a couple of angry people can get back at corporations. It reminds me again of the same fight that's being had against the gaming industry for 4 games. It's destruction of everybody, scorched earth for somebody's perceived slight, instead of just doing something else. Kylie Shevlin points out here, why is AI never working towards the 3-hour work week and all of our needs met futures Ken has predicted, but instead always seems to be working toward the get the frickin' soup line Oliver Twist future that we're heading towards? We could be trying to cure cancers or make tax prep 100% free, but instead we're trying to aggressively replace one of the few remaining jobs that provides a legitimate middle-class income. Why? And you see it further. And that's from this Cognition, where it says Devon is the new state of the art on the SWE bench coding benchmark, has successfully passed practical engineering interviews for leading AI companies. This has completed the first real jobs on Upwork. So, getting rid of freelance work gets you're going to have no job or you're going to be a slave. Aziz She further says this. It says, it finally happened. I got hit up by an ad agency to do some art. I said, cool, I have experience with work like this. Here's my rate. What is this for? And they said that it will be a bunch of illustrations that the client will then use to train AI models. So you get paid once and never again. Gary Marcus posted this article. Generative AI providers quietly tamper down expectations. In the past year, major technology firms have championed generative artificial intelligence as the next big thing, boosting the stock market to new highs. Does this feel like market manipulation to anybody? But behind the scenes, representatives of major cloud providers and other firms that sell the technology are tempering expectations with their salespeople, saying that the hype about the technology has gotten ahead of what it can actually do for customers at a responsible price. Further, here is Jaron Lanier. There is no AI. AI is not an electronic brain in the sky. It is a mashup of the efforts of people.
What I meant when I said there is no AI is it's important to remember that when we talk about AI, we're talking about a new kind of collaboration where the efforts, the creativity of a large number of people are brought together in a new way. When you ask ChatGPT to write something for you, it's not some electronic brain in the sky. What it's doing is a statistical mashup of other things that people have written. The same thing is true when it writes code for you. The same thing is true in all the other cases. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think new ways for people to collaborate is a fantastic use of technology. I just don't think this fantasy that we're building a big brain in the sky is helpful. I think it's better to keep track of the absolute fact that what we're really doing is mashing up the efforts of real people. And I like the idea of recognizing and celebrating those people. I hate the idea of people being made to feel small or like they're being left behind or that they're less important because there's this big electronic brain, because there isn't. All there is the people. What I mean.
So the people, let's try to pretend and obfuscate that this is not artists, that these are not the people that are being stolen from. Even people who support it realize, understand, express where the data is coming from. Further, we have Louisa Jarowski, who says, as the privacy and copyright lawsuits against OpenAI piled up, there is a clear message about AI training. Data protection authorities take note. Explain in 1 minute.
As OpenAI pile up, there is something that became very clear. People are unhappy because they have no control over how their personal data or how their creative work is currently being used to train AI systems. So, for example, the privacy lawsuits. People are claiming invasion of privacy. We didn't give our consent to AI companies to use our personal data to train the AI systems, but they are doing that. That's what they did. They scraped the whole internet, including our personal data, and they used it to train the AI systems. We were not notified. We did not give our consent, but they still do it. So this is the first part on the privacy lawsuits. There are also the copyright lawsuits. So what's happening? Authors, writers, artists, they are unhappy that their copyrighted material is being used to train AI systems. They did not authorize, they did not license the content for AI training. However, AI companies scrape the whole internet to train their AI systems and they use copyrighted materials. Artists, writers, creators, they want to say, no, I don't want to be part of that AI system. I don't want my copyrighted creative work to be used to train your system, especially for free. So people, both users, creators, artists, we want to have control. Data protection authorities take note. Consent should be the correct lawful basis to collect and process data for AI training.
Which it's also funny that this is bringing up consent in general. Because king of the generative AI, freaking hate to bring it up, but I saw a gross video of him laughing about using generative AI to dignify the thoughts. And he said that he did not consent to looking at thoughts. So is this all just revenge? Is this really just revenge? Every little bit of this? Where it's, well, you didn't have to consent to this because I didn't consent to having to exist on the same planet as you. Because I didn't consent to the way that you live your life. So now I'm going to control everything. Is that what really this all is? Going over to Ed Newton-Rex, disappointed to see OpenAI's CTO dodge questions of Sora's training data. We saw that earlier. With Louisa Jarowski, she says Italian data protection authorities have opened an investigation into OpenAI's Sora. Here's what you should know. First, OpenAI will have to clarify to the Italian DPA if Sora is already available to the public and if it is or will be offered to users in the EU/Italy. Then OpenAI will have to clarify how the algorithm is trained, what data is collected and processed to train the algorithms, especially whether it's personal data, whether particular categories of data are collected, that is religious, philosophical, political, genetic, health, sexual life, and which sources are used. So different countries are cracking down, are finally catching up. This is what they've been trying to outrun. We've also got by Neil Turkovitz, Japan's text and data mining (TDM) copyright exceptions for AI training, a needed and welcome clarification for the responsible agency. While it remains unclear that Japan's goal of respecting copyright as required by international law has been achieved, it is important to understand that claims that Japan has removed copyright as an issue that must be addressed in the development of AI is inaccurate. So Japan is also working on understanding how to interpret and understand generative AI. With John Lamb says, make sure the FTC and Cal Privacy understand that we are consumers and the public were sold a lie. We are being harmed, exploited, face unemployment because the products we opted into 10 years ago that were sold as consumer friendly. #fraud. So put aside the title artist or writer for now, he says. We are consumers whose trust have been violated, exploited, and now our means of survival is threatened. Generative AI is the biggest violation of consumer trust and exploitation ever. We need to lean on the FTC and the CPPA, California Privacy Protection Agency, to hold these companies accountable. These organizations' sole purpose of existing is to protect the protection of the public against overstepping tech companies. The CPPA is already examining the exploitation of consumers signing TOS some 10 years ago, not fully understanding the scope of that agreement or protecting against future technological advancements. Imagine that you were 24 and you signed the TOS when you were 14. I'd argue that generative AI companies are the most egregious violators of consumer trust and data exploitation that have ever existed. What are your thoughts on that? I would agree. Imagine that you signed up for DeviantArt freaking 15 years ago as a freaking 15-year-old. And you just wanted to share your crappy poetry and your OCs. And then, 10 years later, these people are claiming everything that you do, everything that you post, because you really want to say that's it? John Lamb also said, Clarkson, a law firm, has filed their opposition to OpenAI motion to dismiss class action complaint. Points made in regards to OpenAI's /M money's exploitation of old TOS and consumer data images of family and children. So these will also be down in the description below if you would like to follow this up. Again, taking personal data information from stuff that was agreed upon forever ago, changing TOSs to include the stuff that nobody conceived of so long ago. Another from Louisa Jarowski, breaking from Raw Story and Alternet, filed a copyright lawsuit against OpenAI requiring that they all remove all copies of copyrighted works from which the author, title, copyright, and terms of use information was removed from their training data sets. Important quotes. Based on the publicly available information described above, the OpenAI defendants intentionally removed author, title, and copyright information from plaintiffs' copyrighted works in the creation of ChatGPT training sets. The OpenAI defendant had reasons to know that their inclusion in their training sets of the plaintiff's work of journalism without author, title, and copyright information would induce ChatGPT to provide responses to users that incorporated materials from plaintiff's copyright-protected works and regurgitated copyright-protected works verbatim or nearly verbatim. The OpenAI defendants created tools in late 2023 to allow copyright owners to block their work from being incorporated into training sets. This further corroborates that the OpenAI defendants had reason to know that use of copyrighted materials in their training sets is copyright infringement, which is enabled, facilitated, and concealed by the OpenAI defendants' removal of author, title, copyright, and terms of use information from the data sets. Also funny, so I have seen so many people say that generative AI is creating things that no human mind could think of. It is so amazing. And to me, it's just like, have you ever created anything before ever? Have you ever looked at art before ever? Because people can do incredible things. And so I saw this video and it made me think of that because this guy here, great use of AI visual weirdness in the title sequence. And, the reader's added context here, there was no AI used in this opening sequence. It was all done by a surrealist. So they can't even tell what can come out of a human's mind. They just think if it's surreal, then it was not created by a human. And as Rad Scientist here says, arguably worse than the coming tide of AI vomit is people who can't tell the difference between art made by humans and AI visual vomit. Then you got this from Paris Marx, where OpenAI releases Elon Musk's emails to show that he backed out of for-profit plans. ChatGPT maker says Tesla boss wanted top job in board control as feud over AI startup deepens, because they were going to work together, and now they're not, because it's a clown show. Microsoft engineers also warned company of AI's tools creating violent sexual images and ignore copyrights. So none of these companies are blind to what they are doing. They know. They know strongly what they are touching. Then we have Meg here, who expressed that a museum in their area posted these generated images. And when asked, the museum responded on Instagram, confirming they were generated by AI. What is the purpose of having generated images in a museum where you could put actual art made by actual people that means something? Now, getting into some of the good news and some of the final things to mention for today. Number one is there is infighting. We see that with Elon Musk's situation, but we see that even more with some of the generative AI companies actually fighting each other. And that first comes where they're stepping on each other for infringing on each other's copyrights. First we have, and that comes with the prompters too, by the way, this image was going around. Before you steal AI generated images, realize that a prompt was not created within 10 seconds. Generating for the right result can take 10 hours. Some makers pay for using generators. Some creativity and vocabulary are required to deliver quality. You cannot master this in one day. We don't make tangible things with our hands, but that doesn't mean no effort was made. So they're first defending what they do, which is steal, to say that it is worthy and it actually takes effort. You also have this ridiculousness, link in the description below. Irony of the year, Midjourney has accused Stability AI of theft, banning all Stable Diffusion developers from its services for stealing prompts and image pairs. Stealing training data, you say? Reed Southern adds to this image about AI theft and the defense of AI theft, saying the only way AI prompters can convince themselves that their new skills are valuable is by pretending that it's hard work. They believe that they picked it up so quickly because they are just that good, not because it's easy, which is literally the entire purpose of generative AI. And that's what they say. Since the beginning of time, it has been, well, this is easier and less time consuming than art, than learning to draw. And then they do this and then say, well, it's hard. It's difficult. You've also got AI and their evangelists got booed out of South by Southwest. So this shows the general opinions of generative AI outside of these bubbles. When you go to anywhere that actually has artists that care, people that consume artists, people that love art, they do not want this. You have a couple of people. Not saying that everybody is against this, because obviously everybody is not. But it is not widely accepted.
Digital culture makers, and I think if you look out into this room, you can tell that AI is a culture.
Artificial intelligence is the present. It's here. Everybody's saying an AI thinker. You know your best.
Yeah, so this isn't going as well. Like some people will claim, if you put it out to the general public who don't know what's going on, then it'll just be supported. Shad has said this. I've shown the argument from him in previous chats where he said, it doesn't matter. As long as it's well put together, they don't care. People do care. People do. That's why there is also a call for transparency. Over here with John Lamb, AI art theft YouTube video is now up to 60K. I think it's way more than that now. So if you want a good documentary kind of showing what's going on with generative AI and composited, John Lamb has a great documentary that he put together. Highly recommend check it out. Again, link in the description below. Then last message from Ed Newton Rex for today. Another example of showing that AI models making scientific breakthroughs aren't the ones trained on people's creative works without permission. You can keep using AI to invent the future without exploiting creators' work. So this is to say that even though we're against generative AI, the many of us, whoever it is, on the team that I am describing, it's not against everything. There are uses. There are plenty of uses. There are plenty of places to use generative AI for human advancement, for future advancement, which, right now the arts is not it. Going over here with Dr. Dorothea Baer. She says, some people use AI to create deepfakes, plagiarize the work of others, and contaminate the internet with stochastic bullshit. Others use it to develop potentially powerful new approaches to cancer detection, monitoring, and treatment. That's what it should be used for. And there are purposes for this that do not require plagiarism, devaluing human life. But actually, this is a love for human life right here, a love for the human spirit. And this is powered by wanting to help people, which is different than trying to use people, steal people's soul, and then bottle it to resell it as your own. Finally, I do want to end with this message by Dakota Johnson about Madame Web, because it mentions generative AI, and I also think that it applies to this situation overall. I've seen the same opinions from opiners, from people that are trying to grift in the arts and destroy the arts, and feel how you will about whatever you want. But obviously, this is something that means something to me. And I think that too many people think that regular humans are stupid and they can't tell when someone's trying to take advantage of them. Maybe it's just hope. Maybe, or, I agree, I am an idiot. There is that. But I don't think the general people are. Quote, she said, "It's so hard to get movies made. And in these big movies that get made, and it's even starting to happen with the little ones, which is what's really freaking me out. Decisions are being made by committees, and art does not do well when it's made by committees. Films are made by a filmmaker and a team of artists around them. You cannot make art based on numbers and algorithms. My feeling has been for a long time that audiences are extremely smart, and executives have started to believe that they are not. Audiences will always be able to sniff out bullshit. Even if films start to be made with AI, humans aren't going to want to see those because people value other people. People value creations, the souls of other people. And I see this by committee happening with the fans that are thinking that they can just fight against the companies, fight against the creative teams that don't even know they freaking exist. One final thing that I want to add is Reed Southern's summary here of what's happened with generative AI in just a week. OpenAI CTO embarrasses herself over data, which was her saying that she doesn't want to talk about where it comes from. Adobe stock dives, lack of AI returns. South by Southwest crowd boos AI. FTC opens an investigation into Reddit, because that's something that I forgot to mention, is that Reddit has also said that it is going to sell all of the posts and the user data to generative AI. So if you've agreed to use Reddit at any point in the last however long it's been open, your posts are probably going to be sold. Your information is going to be sold. Your stories are going to be sold, possibly, unless the FTC, steps in. Italy opens an investigation into Sora. The EU AI Act passes, and Midjourney goes on a blocking spree after criticisms on Twitter. So things are happening. Of course, when abuse and exploitation happens, it doesn't get stopped generally in a reasonable amount of time. I mean, it doesn't usually get stopped quickly, which is why you got to follow through, but it does eventually catch up. So no matter what the issue is, no matter what is being exploited or the abuse that is happening in any sort of manner, never stop speaking about it. Never stop fighting against it. Be strategic, be thoughtful, and it does come to an end eventually. It does, as long as you keep pushing. So that is my update to the generative AI stuff that is going on that I have seen. All of the links that I can think of will be listed down in the description below if you would like to further investigate anything that was brought up today. Things are moving forward, and I bring a message of hope. I always bring a message of hope. I think that art is beautiful. Art is fun. Art is beautiful in different ways because it exposes different parts of the human psyche, of the human soul, of our experiences. And that's not to say that all art is going to be applicable or beautiful to everyone in the same way. That's not what I mean. And I know that some have taken it to mean that, where they go, well, this is going to not be pretty to some people, or you can't force people to all like the same thing. That's not what I'm saying when I say it brings people together. What I'm saying when I say art brings people together is it gives a shared experience for the people that are interested in sharing that experience. So a bunch of people from different backgrounds can enjoy that experience together. Not that everyone will, but it gives a point of something in common for people that may not have had anything in common before. Anyway, I have a lot of hope, a lot of love for art. I will never stop creating art as long as I'm alive, no matter how depressing I get, as you may have seen on Thursday. But I can't stop. I can only stop when I die, which we won't come back to that. But it's so important, and I can't even imagine what kind of deterioration, what kind of hatred you have to have inside of you to want to destroy something so human, and for what reason? to be this greedy. And that's what the corporations are. The corporations themselves are greedy. And before this, I don't know how many people actually rejected the idea that corporations are greedy. But now it's, well, this one's not a greedy mofo if it gives me what I want. I don't think it's hopeless, though. We are getting places. It just takes time. It just takes effort. And it just takes discussion. And you can't ever convince everybody. That's not what I'm ever trying to do. I know that a bunch of people are just going to never like what I say, and that's fine. In fact, I assume most people will hate me, and that's fine. But that is the update. Let me know what your thoughts are on anything said today in the comments down below. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and have a good weekend. Don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out? The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross. Is he in trouble? We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him. Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?